you?
Good. I'm blessed, and I'm excited about the future.
Man, first of all, thanks a lot for accepting our invitation to the Pivot Conference. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but I really wanted to use these times not to necessarily just promote the conference. As marketers and salesmen, we get accused of promoting too much, and I never thought that was enough. Because
I don't
promotion is
know. I mean,
education.
why is that? You can't you don't say leaders lead too much, right? Right? You don't say singers sing too much. You want them to do what it is that they're here to do in society. So I don't know why that is, but hey, make
Hey
it.
man, that sounds like a whole lead off there. Singers don't sing too much. You have to do what you were purposed to do.
Right.
One of the things that as we hear with Delano and we talk about I look at your title, but it really speaks to who you are, brand architect. And when I hear the word architect, that architect takes an idea of a person and puts it into a format to where it could become a substance. It could become a building.
Yeah.
So, we're going to jump right into some meat here. I mean, talk about being a brand architect, man. I mean, that right there just appeals to me, and it just peels me back too, because I'm thinking about my brand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was one of those, it was a fascination that actually developed over the course of my career. When I first started in the visual communications field, coming out of entertainment, I started to notice that there were best in-class practices and procedures and ideas, ideation processes, iconographies that were very, very similar in content and context to other brands. And I started to figure out that they were all following some thought process or some output process. And I studied architecture for almost a year before deciding to go into music full time. And when I realized that there were things and guidelines in place for art, because usually when it came to art, I did fine art, and so there was always this free flow and subject to interpretation from the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
But here on this other level, there was this art that had structure to it. And then, so people who were artists, there were things that our manager would say, okay, no, we have to do this. This is what our brand is. And I started to hear this word a lot. And then in our contracts, when I was in a music group, in our contract, there was something called a key man clause. I was the lead singer of the group, and they were saying, any record company would always hold the main talent subject to a separate contract because of the brand. So if the other people in the group decided I want to get married now, this isn't what I really want to do, the record company actually has a hold of their investment, right? So, and that is in the main person. So this brand thing started to come up a whole lot. And after getting married and doing some graphic designs, I met some printers who started to show me, how things are done and prepared. And before I knew it, my love for architecture and engineering, civil engineering, kind of just collided with the fine art. And I found that space where I can work on people's identity, help them to define that identity, but put in place guardrails, visual clues and iconography and typography, all these clues that identifies them apart from the other competitors within their market. So I kind of just developed that love because it encompassed, everything. I was able to stay within the entertainment field. Like my clientele now is athletes, artists, entertainers, and entrepreneurs. So I'm across the board with this discipline of brand architecture. And then also a client actually coined that term, and thinking as a brander, identity developer, I'm like, So I went and searched it up, and there weren't really a lot of people that gave themselves that title. And a friend of mine from David Ogilvy, which is one of the largest advertising firm. You have the Grays and the Landors and all this stuff. And he said to me, you know, the thing about branding yourself is that you got to give yourself a title no one else has, so that you can explain it. Now, he told me that over 20 years ago, and I find myself in an interview with you having something to talk about because I have to explain it.
Well, you know, the thing I hear and that just comes to me, you know, a lot of people don't realize I'm an engineer by degree. So I was in engineering. Actually, probably about a year and a half, I was like, man, I really don't want to do this. No, it was 2 years. And
yeah,
but I'm like, okay, I'm too far along now.
right.
I got good grades. It's not like I can't do it. So let me go
So
ahead.
that was before AutoCAD, right?
Yeah, because, well, it was right on the verge. Because here's what happened. It was a funny story. I remember being in freshman graphics, and Dr. Porsche, that was his name, and he said, Howard, you're not going to be a good engineer because you can barely draw a straight line. And I said,
wow.
Well, I said, they're going to have computers for me to draw the lines with, Dr. Porsche, by the time I graduate.
Right.
And, I said, I tell you what, whatever I got to do to get a B out of your class, I'm okay with that. You know, it sounds like you're not going to want me to earn an A. Yeah. So, because my lines won't be straight enough for you. But if I get a B out of your class, I'm happy. And I got a B in his class, but and he never would let me live that down, that conversation. But but one of the things that it taught me a lot of, you know, kind of what I do in my space is bringing ideas to teams and helping people frame their ideas. It helps put a structure around it. Yeah. See, that's one of the things I heard you say is, you know, this athlete over here, this musician, now they have a structure around their brand that allows them to position it in different ways. Yeah. So, you know, we're going to jump ahead a little bit as we talk about this pandemic and pivot. Talk about why it's important to be able to pivot your brand as not just the marketplace changed, the whole world is changing. There are a lot of things happening different, and there's going to be, I like to say there's a now norm. That's the things that we wake up to every day. There's a next norm, and then there's going to be a new norm. And so how do you pivot through all of those different norms?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you pivot through all the new norms? So if I were to look at it from a branding perspective, which that's kind of like my bioptic view of looking at things. First of all, the word pivot. And I'm going to draw in some of the conversations that I've been having with my clients who are all extremely concerned. So we have pivoting on one side and we have branding on the other. Now, before I go to pivoting, let me just say, first of all, your brand has to be clearly identified in the market. Mm-hmm. Number one. We talked about engineering. That's another reason why I love this, is because you can have a big dream and big ideas, but brand architecture is creating the structure from which that brand can actually survive and exist upon, right? It is.
So you're talking about creating that foundation. So before you get out to the glitz, you got to have the foundation, is what I'm hearing.
You have to have a foundation that's rooted in some intrinsic value that's tied to your core personal competency, right? Your core competency if you are an entrepreneur, right? So some people have a product and, you know, they're focused on that product, but there's something, the reason why they're driven about that product is because either it's something that worked for them, they take a liking to it, maybe the packaging, maybe the narrative of the story of how that thing came about. There's something that they like about it that identifies with them. It builds instant rapport. So there's a tie. So, and then there's other people who have businesses that's brand, but that comes from their personality. You know, most entrepreneurs, businesses, and when you look at the nucleus of the core competencies and the value statements, is really coming from that entrepreneur, the person that founded it. So it's important to know what your foundation is at this point, because if you're going to pivot, you need an axis from which to pivot on.
You know, I want to touch on something and see, you hear this word pivot a lot.
Yeah.
And I tell folks this, and I had a conversation with a client. A pivot is just one point. It's
Yeah.
where you turn around.
Yeah.
Take that basketball player, it's the pivot foot that they use to turn and transition around.
Right.
So continue that conversation. I just wanted to make that point and draw that out.
Yeah, I know that will get you going because you're an engineer. We gonna get this good. We gonna get this drawn out from. So now from an engineering standpoint, when I look at a plot, I have to consider the grade of the soil and the land that I'm building on, because the weight of that vision / house / building / artwork has to be sustained by the earth it sits on.
So let me park it right there. So like here in Louisiana, because of the type of soil we have versus in New York where you have a stronger bedrock.
Yes.
Here in Louisiana, we have to, if you're building a big building, you have to put 30-foot pylons into the ground in order to create that foundation. So if you would parallel that to building a brand for a person, or allowing them to pivot that brand around and creating that foundation.
Yeah. See, the bigger your dream is, the more important your foundation. The larger you dream, the more important it is to have a foundation that sustains it. Number two, where you build that dream, geographical location becomes importance number two, important list priority number two. Because like you say, everywhere, every market doesn't sustain the same products.
Wow. Say that again.
I mean, listen,
Delano.
I could go in LA, right, singing straight up Bronx rap. If it ain't gangster, if
it's gonna be gone.
Dre ain't produce it, ain't nobody listening. Right? It's just, and I if I want to be an actor, I don't go to Wyoming and study, right? Yeah. I go to LA, right? If I want to be in theater, right? Where do I go? I go to New York. If I'm interested in technology, I'm going to, Silicon Valley.
Yes.
So you have to know, number one, where you're going to build it, the ground. And then geographically, where you're going to go, what market are you going to build that dream upon? So when we look at pivot now, one of my clients came to me and said, Delano, and they're in the movies, have done a lot of big blockbuster films. He said, Delano, he said, I'm concerned about, what the future looks like for our industry and for what I do. And they work. I mean, they have a lot of work. But he said to me, if I be honest, this quarantine has caused me to reconcile my focus, right? Reconcile my passion. Reconcile, what do I want to leave, right? Is it a legacy of films? Is it a legacy of humanitarian work that's in my heart? So they really had this opportunity, instead of, from film to film to film, I had an opportunity to really look at this. And he said, but I'm concerned. And I said, what was the concern? He says, well, I don't know what else to do at that level to make the money that I'm making now. And so we went down a few things that in terms of their talents.
Okay.
And I talk about this in the book. So basically we're talking about pivoting here, but I wanted to set this up. So what he did many years ago is he decided to take the glory talent. Most people have more than one.
Yes.
You have about 3 or 4 things that innately, right? You have things that you can do that when sharpened, you could command major resources. So they took the glory talent, they developed it, but buried the others. He buried the others, and now a time has come upon him where he has to actually dig up and find the treasure that's hidden in those buried talents. A lot of people, I cannot tell you, at least about 80% of the people I'm talking to now, even with their products, because in 2019, we launched products for customers and clients. And now we're reevaluating whether or not that specific product will actually survive in an economy. And first of all, we don't even know how that looks.
Yeah.
But in branding, I have to be able to look forward, using all the sciences, psychophysics, causality. I have to be able to use all these different disciplines to give my best guesstimate of how we nurture or modify this specific brand, whether it's a personality brand, whether it's a product brand, or whether it's a corporate brand, in a new market. So now they have to pivot. Now, let's use the analogy or the metaphor of a basketball game. I'm Jordan. I was just thrown. I mean, come on, if you're going to compare yourself to the best.
No. No, I had to I'm gonna digress a little bit. Your mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, I remember him saying, one of his favorite lines I remember, he said, they sell you that if you buy a pair of Jordans, you can jump and play like Jordan. He said something that's in a bucket of chitlins, there's no way you go jump like Jordan just because you get the shoes.
Yeah, it was ingenious because, I think he had a good group of people around him, and he was too young to understand, that level of branding. But they knew they had a GOAT in the making, the greatest of all time in the making,
Yes.
simply because of his number one brand asset, his charisma. It wasn't that he dunked, it is how he did it. It ain't that you can speak, but it's how you speak. It's all the little small nuances and details that bring you into what you do. So if I'm Jordan and I was just throwing a rebound grabbed by Dennis Rodman, and we're in the finals, I land on both feet. Now I'm ambidextrous. I can go up from the left or I can go from the right. But depending on what the environment calls for, I have to make a decision of whether I pivot from my right or whether I pivot from my left. Some people haven't produced or developed the pivot foot or quote unquote talent that's needed to be able to survive right now. Yeah. So pivoting for them will be going back and looking at which foot you need to pivot off right now.
And that's, one of the things I've found, and you may have found it too, with that hidden talent, I call it the hidden talents or the buried treasures, is when we're faced with things, too often, many times, we look at it from a deficit standpoint versus appealing back to our assets. What have I done in the past that has prepared me for this pandemic, if you would, or prepared me for this pivot? And so going back to Jordan, practicing dribbling with that left hand, practicing those finger rolls when your coach told you, man, why are you doing that? He said, there's going to be a moment in the game where I got two defenders and I got to teardrop it above them. And I don't want to think about it then. I want to just let it release it. Right. So talk about how do you go back and pull those hidden talents out and polish them a little bit? Because you were talking about a client that you were going through that with.
Yeah, so it's a matter of, number one, taking an inventory. I mean, finding your talents is as easy, literally, as easy as going down the list of things that people told you did good, or you should make this a business, or you should be a speaker, or you're pretty smart. You're like a scientist. Like, people have said and gave you indications throughout your life. Mm-hmm. You just weren't listening to it because you was focused on that one talent. Why? Because you came from an old school that told you that you must not be the master of all trade. I mean, the jack of all trades and the master of none, right? Well, that's changed. Now, in order for you to actually survive in this game, you have to embrace the word multi.
Yeah.
So Jordan was ambidextrous, meaning he was multi-talented when it came to his options, right? His options gave him the left or the right of the bucket. So why do you think most of
Don't
these
forget the
jobs?
vertical now. You see, that's the beautiful thing about
Oh
Jordan.
yeah,
He had that.
the vertical was the icing on the cake, right? that was a gift,
Yeah,
right? He was born with the genetics to hang in the air, but he had to develop left and right.
yeah,
Most people aren't born ambidextrous. So what people have to start to do now is, one, take an inventory of where are their talents, and that could be. Let me just convert that to a business application. There are things that your business is known for,
hmm
and there are specific problems in that market. You just have one or two products that focus on one product, one problem, or maybe two problems in the market. So the other problems will automatically require refinement of the things that you are already capable of doing. So when
yes,
you take that inventory, right, there are things that your customers or clients may have said to you or even required of you that cause you to go into another market because you didn't want to lose that dollar, right? Hey, do you also do this? I mean, this is how, I made my first million essentially. I started off doing graphic designs for my album cover. Everybody liked it. So they started saying, hey, where'd you get it done? And the first time I gave up my source and realized that was stupid. Why did you do that? Even if I don't know how to figure it out. So what did I do? I went ahead because I was ordering a lot of albums from them. I sold over 100,000 copies, almost 100,000 copies. I was doing quite 100,000 copies of my album, my CD. And so I just basically went to the manufacturers and said, hey, listen, I did a lot of business with you. I got a lot of friends in the business, and I need a deal here. We need to come up with some agreement. So sometimes your clients may be making requests of you that triggers other talent. So number one, again, just so I'm clear, in finding the talent needed to pivot off, if you're
yeah,
not already there, go down the list of all the things that people have said you are good at. Go down the list of the requests that your customers or clients have been asking you to do, but you didn't want to do because it may not have been a core competency. And I think then you're going to start to find your left leg so that you can now pivot in this new economy.
that, and that's so key because, like I said, that I look at that as the assets. Those things that you've done as an individual could have been that you volunteer and done for free.
Yeah.
For me, that's how the Pivot Conference came about. Is literally a lot of the organizations I'm in, I've been helping them do digital stuff. They said,
Yeah.
okay, Howard, we see you there. Can you run this meeting for us? Can you tell us what we should do? Or, hey, we got to do an election. How do we do that digitally and have the integrity of the face-to-face ballots? And so, figuring all this out, or, hey, our mentoring program, do we just stop? And I'm like, no, the kids still need us. They need us even more now. What do we do then?
Yeah.
Right. So, hey, let's put this together. And we did all that. And I was like, okay, Howard, that's an asset. That is, that is one of those talents you have. And so I challenge people to take what Delano is saying is really, if you don't get anything outside this, get a blank sheet of paper and say, hey, I am good at this. I've been told I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I like doing this. All I need to do is sharpen it a little bit.
Yeah.
And it becomes a good knife or a good utility. And so that is something that, is real key. What is the next step as you realize where you should pivot from? Because one of the things that we say, we have 5 things, it's really 6, but pause, you talked a little bit about that. Prayer, that's spending time. I like to say there's 2 parts to prayer. One, you asking. So the pausing allows you to see what you need to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to stay long enough to hear
Yeah.
of the situation. That's kind of tells you where you are, and God is giving you some insight on how to pivot. But then once that happens, now you got to have a plan,
Yeah.
or a playbook,
Right.
to move forward.
Yeah.
And then, so talk about having that plan, developing that plan. Once you decided, I got to pivot left or right, but how do I create a plan?
Yeah. So the plan is the part of pivoting that will require discipline, number one. Because prayer is a way to open access to information that you don't know that you don't know. Prayer is an avenue from which you can discover things that are hidden. Prayer is a way that you can chisel off all of the things that distracted you or attached itself to your core competency and purpose. And so that prayer time allows you to chisel off the things that don't matter and to focus on how do I move from here. So prayer is extremely important, but I'm gonna ask that, you know, we use this ratio. It should be 20% proclaiming that tomorrow is a good day and you will be prosperous. It should be 10% asking, God, I need this and I need this. Those are the things that you know you need, even if it's knowledge or wisdom or relationships. But it should be 70% listening. Because a lot of times when we pray, the answer is usually right there on the side of us, right? And God will say, just turn around. And you turn around and it's right there. It could be in your spouse. You know, she's been telling you to do this specific thing. Or you know,
the end of that part of it right there, and I'm just joking.
You know, it could be a spouse. It could even be your kids. It could be a colleague going to do it. It could be your business partner say, you know, we need to diversify, you know, for whatever reason. Yeah. But you were making money and you just didn't see the necessity for, you know, branching off and creating different expense and trial and error. So sometimes the listening is where the major discipline is. It's not the moving after the plan. Because once you identify what you wasn't listening to or didn't see, that's right in front of you, you will automatically start. If you're an entrepreneur, if you got the spirit of an entrepreneur, and you ain't lazy like the guy with one talent in the Bible of Matthew chapter 20, chapter 25, the one who had one talent, he buried it, right? He went ahead, dug a hole, buried it. The other guys, one had 5 and one had 2. They went ahead and they got to work. They went to work and they doubled what the master gave them. So the minute that enlightenment comes, that, wow, I prayed, clarity has come. I see I should have gone into this business way. I know we have that as a business. We're good at doing this, right? But we never maximize that. And clients was asking for it. So you find the answers, not without, you'll find I guarantee you this, you will find the answers within. I'm going to caution you, because everybody is coming up with post-COVID ideas on how to scale and make $1 million in a down economy, how to grow and bounce back from 0 sales to 7 figures in 7 hours. Everybody gonna come up with their version of how to do these things. The market is, I've been saying this for about 10 years, because you can't keep promoting the end result and believe you're gonna have people that actually finish the race. If I promote the gold cup or the gold ribbon or the gold medallion so heavily, but never make light of the fact that it will take training and discipline and self-sacrifice, right? And curbing my instant gratification appetite. If you don't promote that, we will produce a bunch of candy-driven entrepreneurs who only want the sugar of success and don't want the true nutrients and vitamins of success, because they taste bad, all right? Broccoli tastes bad. Matter of fact, it ain't got no taste at all, and it leaves you gassy. But, you know, a lot of this stuff that's good for us, that and Brussels sprout, they ain't, you know, so we have to get people, those of us who are in, you know, the coaching and the training, and, you know, there was one guy, I would leave his name out of it, but I mean, part of his brand was to be on his, you know, on his Lear jet, you know, with money coming out of his, there's always a stack of bills. Mm-hmm. I'm like, bro, you a rapper or something? Like Like, but it was ingenious because he knew he knew that there was a certain demographic that would respond to this, right? The visual stimulation of that icon of success. And so, you know, done extremely well. But now I look at his content and he has a dilemma. He has an internal pandemic.
Yeah.
Because now, how do I continue? I mean, it is not only distasteful to be flaunting, you know, stacks of cash when that's not even psychologically where people are right now. You know, we produced, I talked about the psychophysics, which is causality, the study of causality and mental phenomena. So in other words, what causes us to respond emotionally in the market when we are externally stimulated, you know, things outside, whether that's visually, audibly, you know, conceptually, psychologically, and then we respond. So understanding how that works and the laws that govern that helps us to determine, you know, what colors to use, or what should identity look like? What is the brand narrative? How do we create that story? What's going to be your, you know, your 10 brand trigger words?
Well, it goes back into the architect. I mean, because when you think about the architect, and I love, you know, whoever that client was that helped you see that, the architect asked that question: what will this building be used for? But more
Exactly.
importantly, what will these rooms be used for?
Yeah.
And that determines what furniture go in there. So it's functional
Yeah.
and to the color, because you know, labs are different than a creative room, you know,
Yeah.
our hospital room. So those are all the kind of things that you have to reevaluate
Yeah.
while you're pivoting in order to create that plan.
Yeah. 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 And one of the things too is I I love this quote by Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs. He said that at Apple, people think that design is veneer, but we believe that design isn't how something just looks, but it is also how that thing functions.
Yeah.
So now you have to reevaluate. We're talking about pivoting now, right? So now you've prayed, you've gotten some idea that the thing you're supposed to do, now that's probably the thing you should look at doing. So now you have to start with the brand architecture, right? And that's across the board, whether that's a product, whether it's your company in and of itself, or whether it's personality brand. Now you have to look at restructuring and creating another narrative, right? And that's where people like us come in, like what I do, is to help you to define now in that environment, right? It helps you to reduce the trial and error, right? Where you build instant connection or as quickly as possible, you know, without any miscommunication, build instant rapport and connection with your market, with your audience, so that you can get on about the business of being profitable and relevant in this marketplace.
You know, talk about that process I mean, because the last time I visited with you, Delano, you talked about that process in writing your book.
Yeah.
You had to go through that, and before you launched the book, you actually revisit the title, you revisit the look, but it was applying that principle that you just described, looking at the marketplace, saying, okay, even though we weren't in a pandemic, you literally had to take that moment in time and say, do I go right or do I go left?
Yeah.
Talk about that process just a little bit.
Yeah. So let me establish this. It is extremely important as the parent of your ideas for you to have other people to tell you if the baby ugly or the baby cute.
Oh, babies are cute, man. I mean, from the parent standpoint.
They listen, don't dress the baby up in that, you know, don't put that on the baby. So what I'm saying is that all babies are cute in their innocence. But being at Toys R Us, I was a creative online manager there, and for a number of years. And here's the thing: everyone, once they knew I worked at Toys R Us, which owned Babies R Us, they would always ask me, "Oh, my daughter, I want to get my son into modeling. You know, I want him to be a baby model." And I'm like, yeah. I said maybe he'd be good as an adult.
No, did you ever tell anybody, man, we got this radio spot we're doing?
Oh my God! And it's not just that; it's just that there is a type. And listen, every baby is unique. I just want to say every baby is unique. But in terms of being a model, there's something specific that the market is looking for. Babies or us were no different.
But that's, you know, that's the key point, I think, is what is the market looking for as it
Yeah, yeah.
relates to what you're providing. It doesn't mean that you change what you're providing. Sometimes you have to repackage.
Right, you have to repackage. Listen, I mean, Lupita Nyong'o would not be in the 1950s, a staple of beauty.
Right.
We just would not have seen that. It took the environment ripe and ready to see the beauty of Black women in their full essence. No perm, no makeup, no nothing, just straight Black beauty for these things to happen. So my process really was, number one, I always implored the opinions of other professionals. So I wrote the book, and I had the title from I was 17 years old. I knew I was supposed to write a book, but I didn't know when or how, but I had this title, and it was Talented and Broke, which is a statement I made to myself in graduating high school, and telling my teacher. Well, I didn't say it out loud to her, but I said it in my mind when she said, "Delano, you did good. You got all these good grades and all these awards. What are you going to do?" And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. My father wanted me to study architecture like my uncle, and I wanted to go into music. And so when I looked at his life, I said to myself, I don't want to be talented and broke. The word stuck with me since I was 17. Now, here's another thing. I had to actually live the content to be able to write the book. So from 17 all the way to 39, I couldn't write the book because I didn't have the perspective to be able to draw on the information needed for other people who would experience or would be experiencing the same thing I went through. So when I was done with the book, I had the book cover. I went over, and designing your own stuff and writing it at the same time is a nightmare. I don't wish that on nobody. And so when we were done, I had the title, and so we went out, right? I had a team. We had focus groups. We had case studies. We would go in and get information. So I had a team. We would go, just cold turkey, just go out and, go with all of our market hangout at the Starbucks, and we went to the Walmarts. We went to the Panera Breads and hung out around there. And we would just, accost people and say, hey, you want to buy this book? With no major sales pitch, just allow the title. Let the title speak to them. We wanted to see, we knew we had a good title that built an instant rapport with 98% of the people on the planet, but we wanted to see if we needed to make any adjustments before we made the investments of putting the product out there. And what we got back was amazing. Here's what we got back. Here's what we found. So there's a certain segment of the demographics that said, wow, this is an interesting book. I love the title. I probably need this, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
There was another demographic that said, wow, I have a nephew who needs this. How much is it? I don't care. I need to give this to him because he needs to get up out of my house. He's been living rent-free for too long. And I always tell him how talented he is. And then there was another group of people that looked at the book, looked at the title, and said, very interesting, but it's not for me. What we found is the people who said it was not for me, they were the people who have the most social pressure to have the trappings of success and not necessarily be successful.
Right.
So that title was too caustic. It was an indictment on the fact that they were not where their potential and everyone else said they should be.
Hmm.
So,
So it
so
truly convicted them, but it
it
actually held
convicted
them
them, but they
hostage.
wasn't ready for that indictment. They
Yeah.
wasn't ready. They wasn't ready to admit that and wouldn't be seen reading a book. They would prefer a book called Talented and Successful.
Yeah.
So what we did is this. I didn't want to change the title because we have the other Succession book is Talented and Successful, then Talented and Rich, and then Talented and Wealthy. So it's a series of books. So here's what we did. We said, you know, we need to make this more aspirational. So focus group again. We put it before people, and through about 10 different versions that stood the test of time,
Okay.
we were down to 3. So what did we do? All we did, we didn't change the title. All we did is added 3 words: refuse to live, and then talented and broke. And that made it aspirational. So people automatically, just 3 words, change the fact that we may have not sold to the 3rd demographic and even the 1st demographic.
Well, but also, you know, when I hear it and I listen to it, what you just said, and it didn't speak to me this way, it's also affirmational
Yeah.
because
Well,
you wake up, hey, I refuse to live talented and broke.
yeah.
And so that is, you're affirming that
Yeah.
in an affirmation.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it does what you said. It really reconfirms that 66%, but then also it released the conviction for the 33%.
Right. Exactly. See, you better
That
with
is
the numbers. You better with the numbers there. You figured that out all around, all on your own. Some.
hey, that you
Yeah.
know, those 5.5 years of engineering, because I took the long route. I had fun at it.
Good, man. Well, it pays off, and it will continue to pay off. But that's the
Yeah.
process, and everyone, you know, when you're gonna have to create new products after you pivot, right?
Yeah.
Because after you pray, I think prayer should come first. Then you decide which leg you're gonna pivot on, right?
Right or
When
left.
you make that turn, now you got to start to put the plan in place to get a product, whether that's your personality brand or your product brand, right? Or whether your corporate brand. Now you have to create something new or redefine or new and improve. You have to do something, right? So at that point is where you want to use those laws of make, refine, right? Then release. Make, refine, release. Make, refine, release. Unfortunately, a lot of my melanated solopreneurs, brothers and sisters, we have the idea, when pregnant with it,
Yeah.
we let that adrenaline control the creative process and the ideation process. We rush to market, right? Because one person said we need, yeah, that's a good idea. We rush to market and we haven't tested all the little tweaks. When just something as simple as putting 3 words in front of your product, or changing your logo, right? Or changing your color palette, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a broader spectrum of the people that really need your solution. So you need to be disciplined in that process when you come to now doing after you've pivoted.
Make, refine, release. And, you know, and one of the things that we're challenging people now is not just to have a plan, but create a playbook, because the
Yeah,
playbook goes through the game with you. The plan a lot of times gets stuck on the shelf.
yeah,
Going back to an architect, your plan is really your blueprints.
yeah,
After the building process is gone, but you know that building is static, okay? But when
right,
it's redesigned, they create a new plan.
right,
They go in and change something.
right. And as you mentioned that, everybody who's building have blueprints, not originals.
Right, they're the working copies.
Right. They are the working copies because we know life will create the opportunity to change.
Correct.
Right.
And the working copies actually are renditions,
Right.
because now they run into something. Our owner comes in and says, "Hey, I don't want that anymore," and so the architect has to tweak it and then issue a new set
Yeah.
of drawings.
Or material is you know, out of stock or non-available, not available
Exactly.
anymore, and now you have to figure out, you know. But yeah.
So yeah, that is you know. So I challenge everyone is, as you go through this, you know, you've chosen left or right for your pivot.
Yeah.
Create that playbook now that's going to take you the next 60, 90 days, and you're going to be constantly evaluating it,
Yeah.
because I can guarantee you the market in 6 weeks will look different in 6 months.
Right.
There's going to be a shift.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to be, but I know there will be a shift and a change.
I have a good idea, and I'm going to share it at the Pivot Conference. I extracted some statistics on the psychology of the market. For example, one of the things that I predict is that Netflix will lose market share. Matter of fact, I have Netflix shares and they are down yesterday. And what I'm seeing in terms of a trend, Netflix will probably have to change their subscription model. Why? Because right now, the bigger portion or demographic of the market, while they want entertainment and they have to do things to occupy their time, ain't nobody gonna pay that bill, whether they're $7 or whatever. And I said that at the beginning of the COVID, and I said, you know what, I wanna see how this works. Because here's a market. Instantly, when I looked at the pandemic and I looked from a panoramic view of marketing and branding, if we stay in this position for an extended period of time, we're going to start to become used to the way we consume product, services, entertainment, which is all digital. So here's what's going to happen when everything's open, when Earth is open again. There has to be this reconciliation, because now you realize that I can still get my favorite foods because I ordered it and it came to me and I didn't have to spend gas to get there. Then you're going to realize that all of my favorite artists are performing for free. They're making up songs, they're doing
and they're engaging with me, they're interacting now.
They're sending me inboxes. I
go to the concert, I can't get that.
Like whoa, right? So there's a reconciliation that has to happen with the value of the world before and the value with the world after. So companies have to deal with this. So here's what I predicted with Netflix. They're gonna have to change it, because big major branding companies who spend billions of dollars for brand positioning, meaning when they spend on their advertising dollars, is really considered brand positioning, marketing. It's just their brand. It's just a Coca-Cola bottle and that's it. There's no offer, buy one, get one free. It's just that marketing. It's just, they pay millions of dollars just for you to see their logo on a big billboard as you drive to and from work. Well, they've already digitized most of at least 80% of all billboards in the country. And now you have another kind of billboard which lives on the highway of everyone's feed. You swiping down and all of this stuff is moving. So where you think advertisers are going to spend money? You think they're going to spend money on television, cable? Matter of fact, there is streaming services advertising on cable now. They're advertising
right here.
Yeah, they're advertising their service on cable to you on cable. And so for the 10% who's still watching cable, right? It's like, listen, get with the game. We're all here. Get what you want on demand. And so what's going to happen is this. Here's what I predict. That Netflix is going to have to change their model, because there exists now with every smart TV an in-app that allows you to watch free movies.
Right.
So they will have to change their model based on this fact. Advertisers are going to look for new ways. They're losing money, so they need the advertising dollars. But their model doesn't allow for in-movie play advertising. Well, how will you be able to do that? The only way that they'll be able to do that is to create a bottom tier of a free subscription, probably an SD version. You don't have access to, 1080p or 4K. which is, you know, you pay for those extra services and the many screens that they have, you have access to stream now. So they're going to have to get with that model because they're losing money in the first 4 months afterwards, right? And this is a company who's spending, you know, between 10 and 15 billion dollars on content creation.
Right.
Right? When now there's a problem with people gathering in large groups. So when you look at all of the external stimuli, someone's going to have to make a decision that we're going to have to get money coming into the door. And how can we do that? We can either up the price, which now it's difficult because they've already allowed 3 months. If you didn't pay your bill, they may have let you gone by. And I watched the whole process, right? What they do is they say, your bill is due, or that credit card, which we know ain't got no money on it, didn't process. So what they say, listen, your card didn't process and your account is overdue. Do you want to pay now or later? Let me see, should I think about that? Let me get my therapist and see. Nah, you're gonna say later. And you're gonna do that as far as they allow you to do that.
Yeah.
So when they get their, you know, their stimulus package and they hold on to that, they're gonna have to look at how do we grow and recoup some of that lost revenue. So they're gonna have to create another tier of a free service and throw a bunch of old movies on there and allow you to probably purchase new movies that you want or upgrade. Now, if I was an executive there, I would be thinking about this. Who am I? These guys make billions of dollars and have a bunch of professionals around them. I'm sure someone is thinking about this if it's not just me. And they have a lot of competition.
Well, you know, the great example, and I'll stay in entertainment, I believe it was Universal, that said, hey, we got this big production. How do we don't know when theaters are going to open back up. And, you know, they really tested it. And then the theaters now are saying, hey, hold up, you release a premiere movie online and made the same amount of revenue, if not more. Actually, they made more profit because
made more
now
profit.
they cut out the distribution.
Your profit margin is through the roof.
Right, because, you know, and then also they got more data because now I know exactly who signed on and who bought. So the next product, I reduce my marketing costs.
You reduce your marketing costs, no billboards, no flying of the artists. You can take that out of their contract, flying from here to there. Let them actually do a few interviews in their bedroom on their on their Zoom, on their Instagram, right? Yeah, that's what you include in it. So I mean, just listen to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's fundamentally change how we do what we do and where we do it. That's a sweeping, overarching change. So like when I look at that and overlay that to the bubonic plague, or what we call the Black Plague of the 1300s, 1347.
Right.
We had the big first outbreak, and just studying that was very interesting. Again, it came from China to the Middle East, landed in Sicily.
Correct.
And it extended all the way to France, to all of Europe, all of known Europe, and it started to spread throughout the world. Only islands was isolated from that, who had no shipments that came in during that time. So you had that same widespread, and you had the 1600s, same thing. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know, but Shakespeare actually wrote a lot of his major plays in quarantine.
Right.
From the bubonic plague and or the Black Death. But they were quarantined for 78 months. So
6.5 years there. I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it is a big difference, technology and everything else. But the fact remains is that, and people actually died. It ain't questionable numbers that's coming out and misinformation. Like, those are people died because there were whole towns where there was no one to bury the people quick enough because they were dying fast. So 78 months to deal with that. We have all this technology, but the psychological response to this upset in our daily lives is going to change the psychological consumer. right? It's going to change that person. So that's part of what, you know, my job is to do, is to help to define that so we can have brands that survive.
Well, and that's part of the reason we're having this conversation today around pivoting. But the Pivot Conference is taking that in-person experience, and someone developed a platform. We're using a platform called Hopin that
Yeah,
allows you to bring some of the best features of in-person conferences. You know,
yeah,
I can choose what workshop I want to go to.
yeah,
I was telling someone, if I'm not getting fed in a workshop, I can just walk out the room and go over. But here in this case, you hit the button and go over to another session.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that one-to-one networking, I'm able to connect with people around the world.
yeah,
And from the comforts of my own home, my own studio, or wherever you so choose. And then
yeah,
exhibitors and companies are able to position themselves in front of you without all that travel expense and
yeah.
hotel nights. So literally your executive can sit down for 4 hours and go
Yeah.
back to his kids versus hopping on a plane. And so it's really
It's
shifting
yeah.
the way we look
It's a
at the way we
brave new
do things.
world which balances out itself, and you have to know what that balance looks like in order to benefit and exploit the changes that's you know on the precipice of happening. It's
Right.
not there yet. It's not too late, but you're going to have. I mean, I can't stress this enough. You're going to have. This is a matter of life in business and personally. Whether you have a personality brand, you're a speaker, and your income is generated by you doing something, right? And part of the statistic that I'm going to share, one of the statistics says that 65% of entertainers, speakers, and artists will lose more than 73% of their yearly income in the first 2 years post COVID-19.
Wow.
Because when you
63 losing 73% of income. Wow.
60, yeah, 65 losing
Okay.
73 of entertainers, speakers, and artists. You have musicians now got to figure out what they do because they ain't making no money from streaming unless you know you own title, right? And the only way that artists made the digital revolution killed, you know, record sales,
Right.
right? And sharing of music, right? Killed or almost killed the royalties until everybody had to get on board. And so now the performance, the live performances, right? That shock and awe of seeing and the energy of seeing a live performance is now reduced to a, you know, a square 1080p or a vertical 1080p, you know, or a square 1-to-1 ratio screen. So now you don't have that anymore. So what's that going to do? The price of everything is going to decrease because, like you said, if I'm going to pay money to be in the conference online, if I don't like what the speaker is saying, it's just not, you know, they're good, but I don't need it. Let me go and do other stuff. You can't do that, you know, at a hotel, you know.
Well, you done flew there once, so
Yeah,
you flew.
you done flew there, you done at the hotel, you done paid everything up front. So you got to stick with it, and you there.
Yeah,
But now you could change the channel. you could change the channel, and but the good thing about this is that for the conference host, it broadens the amount of people that can come to your event. And number two, it gives you actual hardcore data and analytics of what's working and who's working, right? So now you can select specific speakers. And here's another prediction. Content creators and event planners and organizers will probably start to request live data analytics in order to make a decision on how effective this speaker would be at your digital event.
Hmm.
So along with sending your EPK, now I'm making these first time, these are things that one's just off the press, but they will require not your YouTube subscribers, not your Facebook fans or followers, They want live analytics from your participation in all of the conferences you've spoken to, because it's going to tell them, number one, what's the attention span, right?
Long people are staying.
That's extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Right? What is this sign up, right? Percentage. You promote it over here and you promote it. So as a content creator or event organizer, I'm able to target specific markets because this speaker gets this specific result. So instead of sending out a mass mailing list, I'm going to segment my list, break it up into 50 different parts, and I'm going to utilize my dollar. I'm going to squeeze every inch of that dollar for what I can get it by, because I need my response to be extremely accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're basically going to be laser approach. You're going to perform a surgery versus seeing a general practitioner. You know, hey, I'm going to,
a specialist. Yeah, yes, that's
what
right.
my people need versus bringing a whole bunch and hopefully they get what they need, because I can do that now. So as we wrap up here, you know, you've spilled some beans of why. How can people connect with you, Delano? That's the, you know, one thing I always like to give my guests a chance, because someone may say, hey, yeah, I'm going to see Delano at the Pivot Conference on the 16th, but man, I really want to get with this guy now, because there's some things he said that made sense. Well, all of it made sense, but some that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And I need to dive in prior to May the 16th.
Yeah, so the easiest way to get in touch with me is actually by social media. All my handles is at Delano A. Johnson, Delano A. Johnson. All my social media platforms. I frequent Instagram and Facebook more often than Twitter or TikTok or anything else. So that's where you can actually connect with me. If you are want a more personal touch, then you can basically text mentor to the number 833-977-2167. Text the word mentor. Text the word create to 833-977-2167. That's 833-977-2167. Text the
That's
word.
the word create.
Create, C-R-E-A-T-E, create. Yep.
All right. So no, definitely, you know, Delano, first of all, thanks for your time. And I mean, just
no problem, man.
Wealth of information, but more importantly, a wealth of application, because information is one thing, but
yeah,
if it's not utilized, or if a person doesn't know how to utilize it, I mean, you gave some true ways in which you can easily implement it. And that's the key thing. I often like to say, you know, the world pays for implementation and impact.
Yeah.
If you can implement, but if it doesn't have impact to the marketplace, there's no income.
Yeah.
And so you have to.
There you have it.
You had to have those things.
100%.
And so we look forward. We're excited about having you at the conference. You know, this is new for us, but it's also exciting because
sure,
it really, you know, when you talked about that, I got chills about thinking about your talents. And, you know, I told you I was an engineer, but I went straight into sales and marketing. And so I worked remotely since 1991, you know, and when I started thinking about this transition, I was like, you know, wow, I've been doing this my whole life.
You're doing it your whole life.
You know, so, okay, Howard, let's draw on some of those skills. Then I was meeting with a client, and she used to run appointments, virtual appointments for some people. This was 5 years ago. And I asked her, I said, how many live trainings have you done in your life? And she said, oh, maybe 1,000. I said, hold up, you worked 3 years. You were running 6 to 7 appointments a day virtually. Multiply that out. That's over 10,000.
Yeah.
She was like, I didn't think about that. And so now she's positioning that,
right.
You know, work with someone who's helped over 10,000 people, you know,
sure.
understand and have ran over 10,000 virtual meetings. And so, I mean, that's a strong place to position yourself through. And
Yeah.
so, I challenge you as you hear this and go back and really think about it. Take that blank sheet, do that blank sheet exercise, and go back and find those hidden talents and
Yeah.
determine, from there, hey, what do I need to do to polish them up and sharpen them up? So it's two things. They got to look good, but they got to be effective.
Right.
And then when you do that, it's going to position you in a great place coming through this change into the next norm.
Let me just
Any
add
closing
here.
words, Delano?
Yeah. For that right there, and talents. If you want a more comprehensive, if you're a little bit more advanced, everybody's at different levels. But in my book, Refuse to Live Talented and Broke, I actually use empirical data going back into your history of your grandparents to find out through some of the science of epigenetics, definitively what are your core gifts and your core talents and your supporting gifts and supporting talents. Because this pivot will demand that you're pivoting on the leg where you can score. You have to pivot on the leg where you can score. So you have to know for sure. So you can get the book at talentedandbroke.com, talentedandbroke.com. Give us a few minutes. If you use the coupon code PIVOT, PIVOT, give us about till 3 o'clock for you to purchase that. You get a 10% discount on that book. All right. And it'll be with free shipping because it's a workbook. You're going to have to work it out. So
that's the best kind of book, workbooks. Hey, as you say, if you just read it and don't implement, then it's wasteful. It was entertainment.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Hey, a lot knowledge, but if you're not implementing it, then that knowledge is useful. My granddad used to say, "But you're a waste of talent." I mean, he literally would say that.
Yeah, I used to hear that too when you messing around.
You're just wasting your
talent, boy.
Waste of talent. Yeah. And so that, that was a convicting statement. And so I challenge anyone out there, first of all, go ahead and connect with Delano, as he said. Text the word create. That's the word create to 833-977-2167.
Yep.
And, that's going to take you to a deeper level with them. Some great things are going to happen. And then also go over to Talented and Broke and purchase a copy of the book. I've read the first chapter. I got to go purchase my copy, which I will do, and work through the workbook because, as he said, something he said is walking through with those professionals, allowing professionals to tell you how your baby looks, and help you shape your baby, help you raise your baby. And in today's environment, we can do that virtually. You don't have to physically be there with all those professionals. And so some of the things that he's sharing in the book and some of the 10 keys are going to help you shape that baby. Okay. I'm going to help you shape that baby. And that's what I challenge you to do with this new idea, these new ideas. And then I want to give them one other thing on Delano is that, we talked about pausing, praying, and pivoting. You're going to hear a lot of ideas. Put each idea down.
Yep.
Every idea may not be for this season. Some ideas have to marinate a little longer before you put them into your playbook. Okay. But if you don't capture them, you will lose them.
Yes.
You will lose them.
Love that.
And so that is something that you want to do. And then whether it's digitally or you taking a physical, I use both. And so I think I got about 4 pages of note here in my notebook here from today that I got to go back and put into the.
And then you put them in digitally so you can have it stored in 2 places. I do the same thing.
Exactly. Or you can go back and just click it. I can, Evernote, I don't even know if they have an affiliate program, but I use Evernote religiously.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can literally clip whole pages and put them it's a digital filing cabinet.
Yep.
And is how one of my mentors positioned it to me and said, "Hey, Howard, you need to use this." And he said, "I'm not meeting to you again until you started using it." And so that was 7 years ago, and I still use it. And so I challenge you to do that and go ahead and get registered for the Pivot Conference. Simply just go over to the pivotconference.com. That's thepivotconference.com and just click and register. And you're going to have a great time. I can guarantee you that because there's so much. We even got, Delano, we created what we call the coffee shop. And it's a place that, hey, if you don't want one of the sessions going on, you just go hang out in the coffee shop, and whatever conversation come up, you and 16 or 17 other people can have a conversation.
Sure.
Because we often do that at conferences. We will sit at the bar or sit down in the lobby and, you know, and I'll be remiss if I didn't mention the Power Networking Conference, who Delano is very connected with, our friend. I just literally shared a quote from Dr. George Frazier this morning. I'm a member of 100 Black Men Here, and we connected with an organization that had funding for computers. So we were able to get 19 of our mentors laptops, kids that didn't have laptops at home.
Wow.
Brand new laptops.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm talking about stripped down Chromebooks. I'm talking about true full laptops. And so I use that quote that Dr. Frazier has: 1 + 1 = 2, 1 and 1 = 11. So when you collaborate, it really takes things to a higher level. So here are two nonprofits, similar missions, but when they come together, they serve at a more dynamic and impactful way. And so I challenge you to, you know, go ahead and look up the Power Networking Conference. The dates have been rescheduled, and but you can still get served by the Power Networking Conference.
October 14th, yes. And I would also like to say that we have the Power Podcast going on right now, every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and also Saturday.
Okay.
I'm sorry, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. We have the Power Podcast. You can go to watchpowerpodcast.com, and you can see some of the most prolific, awesome thought leaders in the African community that's gathering to help our people to actually get information so that they can navigate, you know, post-COVID-19 and find opportunities. One thing before I go, I'd like to say, my mentor, Dr. George C. Frazier, always says that complexity is the enemy of execution. So don't make moving forward complex. Keep things simple, keep your information streamlined, and you will be able to pivot into scoring in this next economy. With that, as always, embrace your creativity. I'm Delano A. Johnson, # the CEO of Creativity. Thank you.
Hey, Delano, it's been a pleasure having you on here. And as always, I challenge you to go out and be the best you possible, because guess what? Everybody else is taken. If you try to be anybody else, you can only be second best. And the view from second place does not change. You're always looking at somebody's backside. So, hey, go out, be you. And as Delano said, embrace the creativity, because it's within you, not outside. Thanks again. And we look forward to staying connected, and we will be working through as we grow.
Awesome. Great.
Facebook, we're signing out, and